Now, if you want the big picture, God said, let us make man in our image. And remember, the Aboriginal pastor said, teach us that, because we know about God, the creator, Biami, the great spirit who made all things, but we don't know about man made in his image. And there's the starting point of the biblical position. So there's no doubt about it. There was one man in the beginning. There was one blood. So the conflict with the political group that wants creationists banned, that wants us kicked out of schools, that wants us banned from theological college, is they don't believe there was one man. They don't believe there was a creation. There was multiple apes that gave rise to multiple ape men, which gave rise to, millions of people. We have different ancestries, but there was not ever one man. There was one blood. Okay. When you go one step further, you'll find that the picture Paul finishes off in Acts chapter 17. We were made in God's image. Sin ruined that image. And then the rest of the biblical picture is God revealing his plan to deal with the problem of sin, which broke our image, which destroyed our image, so that we can be remade in the likeness of Christ, who paid the penalty for our sin. Now, that's a quick summary of Genesis chapter 1 to the end of the Old Testament, to the end of the first four Gospels. And then Paul says, now we've been told by Jesus to go into all the world. It's relevant to every one of us. God made all nations from one Rosh. There's no doubt about it. You can use the concept of human race, but that's not the only concept that's there. We were made from one Rosh. And if you stop there, that doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make black people stop fighting with white people. He made us live on the earth at the times and the places. So I'm actually in Australia. Joseph's in south of Hunstanton, where there's great rocks. Craig is in Tasmania. Oops. Hey, this gets pretty provocative. The Aborigines are in Australia, so they would seek the Lord. Don't be surprised that Billy's grandmother asked the great creator to send someone who could teach them. She was seeking the Lord, proving that verse to be true. And a missionary turned up in the next week. God made all nations from one head, one Rosh. But by the time you get to Noah, we are still one Rosh, one family of man. There's a better word. We are not one race anymore. We are one family divided into, what did Diane say? The word race is a legitimate word in biology to describe differences you can actually see. Black people are different. Their culture is different. White people are different. They have enough differences for you to actually subdivide them. And they see themselves as different too. Go and try and buy a big business in Japan, you Europeans. See how well you get on. They regard the Japanese as a distinct group, and you can't break into it. You need to acknowledge this. Yes, the real problem is sin. The only solution is Jesus Christ, but it won't change their eye shape. It may have trouble changing their culture. There is one human family. There are many sub-races, and you'll find that that is the best way of dealing with it. Claiming that there's one race does not solve any problem politically or practically. There is one blood for all men. And can I encourage you, when you become a Christian, you become a member of one family. Push that. It works far better than claiming there's just one race. You'll end up with tying yourself up in knots when people ask you, well, I got a question from the Aborigines last week. If I'm descended from Ham, who was dark, am I subject to the curse of Ham? Well, they saw their differences. They acknowledged them. We might save the answer to that until question time next week.